We're going to talk now about why you, the dear listener of this podcast, suddenly find yourself agreeing with Candace Owens.
And horrified as well. Usually horrified. I get messages from my sister who religiously listens to our podcast, and she's like, oh my God, sis, I just, why am I listening to Tucker Carlson? Why am I listening to Candace Owens? Why am I nodding sometimes? I think a lot of people are having a bit of a crisis.
Yeah,
And
well,
we are.
I mean, yeah, because I get sent so many videos from like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and all of these like really kind of right-wing MAGA podcasters, and I'm just starting to think like, what is actually going on here? So, you know, we're going to unpack, I guess, the split within the MAGA movement, particularly in terms of US support for Israel.
I think that's the main, that's the main deviator.
That is the main point of contention. And look at the way it's sort of been driven by podcasters and online commentators, and kind of explore a little bit about what that can tell us about the mainstream media.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, on the one hand, I'm like, well, you know, maybe some people evolve and they change in their views, and maybe they are driven by facts, and now they're more, you know, now they're more inclusive. Or is it more sinister and we should just not trust them because they have a very well documented track record of being pretty batshit?
Yeah, it's somewhere on that spectrum. Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
But let's just start with like firstly understanding like why they're so appealing here. And I just want to focus a little bit on Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. They've been going pretty hard on Israel, particularly Candace Owens, after leaving their respective workplaces. She left the Daily Wire and he left Fox News. Now, I don't think that's a coincidence that they can leave these places and suddenly say whatever it is that they want to say. So there's an appeal to the audience there of independence.
Yes.
Right? And actually, when Candace Owens left the Daily Wire in March in 2024, one of the first things she said was, the rumors are true, I am finally free.
Yeah.
So there's this sense that you're going to get something now that you previously weren't going to get because, you know, the implication, you know, being silenced or not allowed to say it or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about probably Candace more than someone like Tucker Carlson or even Piers Morgan, she's a really gifted communicator. The conviction, the way she can just speak to camera without or whatever, without hesitation, she is a very, very skilled communicator. And not many people have that skill. I mean, they might have the knowledge, they might have years of experience, but she is a compelling and like telegenic communicator.
Look, a lot of people who do well in the podcasting realm are, and I wouldn't underestimate just how potent that is. Like, I'm going to tell a story where I was going to I did a creative writing course for 6 weeks, like many years ago, and I learnt nothing from that creative writing course except for one thing, which pertains to speech.
Yeah.
The creative writing teacher was like, it's all about how you say the thing, and then he clapped it. And he went, it's all about how you say the thing. And I was like, that's so interesting. Like, there's a rhythm actually to the way that people speak, and there's a cadence. So yeah, I can understand why they are appealing, and I can understand why they're convincing. Just have a listen to Candace Owens talking.
So I have been very disappointed with Trump on his perspectives about Gaza. I have been disappointed, by the way, he's the last person I'm disappointed with, because I've been disappointed, as we saw all last year, with the conservatives, people that say they're Christians, who are condoning this on the basis of what? Like, you're saying, oh, well, they're Muslims, so who cares? And that gets into our programming, which I've spoken about in my podcast, of this 9/11 programming, where we just don't see Muslims as like human life. And to speak about Gaza and talking about casinos and hotels, and these people just lost their entire families. Yeah. It's so far removed from humanity.
There you go. I saw you nodding along there.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, Candace, keep going. I mean, she was landing points that I obviously agree with, but she says it without hesitation, with such fluidity, with such conviction.
Yes.
Very easy to listen to.
Yes, indeed. But then you have to remember that she also says this.
They want us not to be brave. That's why they're giving us all this distraction, technology, social media, breeding weak men. They want everybody to be homosexual, right? That's another element of this. They want men to behave like women while telling women that they're going to find happiness behaving like men. You women, you go to work. Men, you be more effeminate. All of that is a part of what I believe to be a broader strategy to effectively weaken our societies. Even if they go full mask down and say, yeah, sexual perverts are running the world, we are not going to have it within us the courage to fight these people.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Okay, the conviction's still there. The cadence is still there. The delivery is still there. The forthrightness is still there. But what she's saying is
insane.
Well, that's certainly one way of putting it. Candace Owens thinks Harvey Weinstein's been falsely convicted, that Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France, is a man, that BLM protests the protesters were pretending to be oppressed for attention, that global warming is not real. And she theorizes that something biochemically happens to women who don't have kids and that the world is run by a cabal of sex perverts. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
All of that is a lot.
It is a lot.
You
And
know
that is why it is so confusing when you listen and you nod along when she's talking about Israel or Gaza and you're like, yeah, Candace.
Like, yeah.
And then you're like, what, Candace? What? I've been listening to Tucker Carlson, more of Tucker Carlson than Candace Owens. And there was this particular interview that stood out to me that he did with political analyst and author John Mearsheimer, whose work I have followed for some years. And this was back in July, this particular podcast, but it stuck with me because it came out after the Christian church or a Catholic church was bombed in Gaza. I think it was the last Catholic church was bombed in Gaza. And then, it made a lot of headlines. And it made a lot of Christian podcasters like Tucker Carlson upset. But I mean, have a listen to this. And the other reason that really irks me, and I've gone back and listened to it a few times because he sounds so different to the ranty Fox News Tucker Carlson that while I'm listening or what I'm watching on YouTube, I'm kind of like blink twice. Like, are you there? Are you okay? Are you being held hostage? Because this is not the Tucker Carlson of the ranty Fox News years. But let's take a listen.
If you're a supporter of Israel, to want to make sure that the United States has a large military and that it is willing to use that military and that if need be, it can help Israel if it gets into trouble.
I didn't hear any reference to American interests in that description.
Well, when it comes to Israel, right, and what Israel needs, right, that has little to do with American interests.
See, this is, I think, the heart of it. And this is why somebody like Carlson is critical of Israel, is because he has a very kind of protectionist attitude. He has an America first mentality. And that's what a lot of MAGA supporters have, that we should be putting the American people first.
Yeah.
We are going through a cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
We can't afford X, Y, and Z. And now we're being, our tax dollars are going to billions of dollars in weapons to Israel. That just doesn't square up.
I guess it's in line with his anti-immigration, pro-tariffs kind of protect America and its interests at all costs.
Yeah, and also America is the best country in the world and it should be a sovereign nation and we shouldn't have, AIPAC or whatever interfering in our politics. I think that's the other aspect of it. And so if you're someone on the progressive side of politics or the left, I'm just they're such nebulous terms these days. I don't even know what I mean when I say them.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of criticism, critiques Israel as, a settler colony that is currently committing genocide. Whereas Tucker Carlson or some of his ilk would arrive at criticism of Israel via very different means.
Another thing that stuck out to me listening to way too much Tucker Carlson is how much his beliefs are rooted in Christianity in terms of his criticisms or concerns about about Israel's genocide in Gaza. And this gives you a bit of an insight into that. Again, he's chatting to John Mearsheimer.
I would think that the United States would have a vested interest in trying to put pressure on the Israelis to stop causing murder and mayhem in Lebanon and in Syria. But we do hardly anything at all.
And those are real countries. Those are ancient countries and beautiful,
they are real
beautiful countries with sophisticated, intelligent people, and the roots of Christianity are there. And it's not, in other words, I mean, there's a sense if you're fighting over Sinai or something, it's one thing, but Lebanon? I mean, that's one of the great countries in the world. Syria, same thing. And they're being destroyed. I don't understand why people allow that to happen.
Why do we let them kill Christians? Because this was said not long after, and he was also quite vocal, in July after Israel bombed, I think, one of the last Catholic churches in Gaza, injuring a priest, killing many others.
Yep.
And so he was very upset by that. But you can also hear he's with Lebanon and Syria, because they have historically significant locations and geography and things that happen in the Bible. So he's we must protect those. But Sinai and the Egyptians, I don't know, there's there's a lot of Muslims there. It's really hard. We don't have to care too much about it.
I think he has also previously called Iraqis semi-literate primitive monkeys.
Yeah.
I don't know how he reflects on that comment, whether that's changed, but it is a little bit of a confused perspective on Arabs. And anyone that's like, I like Arabs, in brackets Christians, is like, okay, little ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling bell as an Arab Christian. You know, but I have that alarm bell ringing.
Yeah, so I mean, there is still a lot of like low-key bigotry and a lot of stuff that you can't forget. Like you rattled off a list of things that Candace Owens has said and done. I mean, Tucker Carlson played an enormous role at Fox News in helping the American public believe that the election was stolen from Trump. He also, just a few months before, having John Mearsheimer on, had a historian that he called, he said, maybe the best and most honest popular historian in the United States. And in a very long conversation with that historian suggested that the Holocaust, to quote, kind of just happened by accident, as though the Holocaust wasn't engineered. And that claiming that the Nazis went in with no plan to kill millions of people. So I'm like, this guy sounds very much like he could be a card-carrying anti-Semite, Islamophobe, and very problematic other views. And so then when you turn to people like that, because they're the only people seemingly criticizing the US military industrial complex, you're like, I am very confused and have a very uneasy feeling, but I don't know where else to go.
Well, there's lots of people that are criticizing the American-Israeli military complex. They're not necessarily on the right, but you find a lot of kind of like leftist critiques.
Like where? As prominent. I'm saying someone as prominent with that sort of platform.
Well, I mean, someone like Mehdi Hassan, for example, they would probably, him and Tucker Carlson would probably agree over this issue.
I think him and Piers Morgan agreed on some issues.
Sure. Yeah. And there's like other, independent American media on the left that is very critical of Israel. Like you don't necessarily have to seek out these people, but they're just like quite enigmatic in the way that they talk. In the same way Mehdi is. Like he's a very enigmatic speaker. But I think one thing that I would just point out to people who are sort of asking, like, can we trust them? It's like there is obviously the wider context going on here. And I just want to give an example of someone who's not a podcaster, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is this very kind of like right-wing Trump aficionado, very like America first.
Very MAGA.
Yeah. Very MAGA.
Yeah.
She was one of the first she was maybe the only Republican in American politics to call what is happening in Gaza a genocide, right? And not only that, but she put forward a bill in July to strip Israel of $500 million in funding. However, if you go back to things that she was saying, like in early 2023, she was, in my view, pushing the Republican Party in a really dangerous direction and talking about, we need to be the party of nationalism. This was the quote that she used. And I'm Christian, and I say it proudly, we should be Christian nationalists.
Yeah.
So she's pushing the idea of like Christian nationalism prior to doing all of this. And I guess the question is like, how much power do you want to, give? How much credence do you want to give? How much trust do you want to put in a person that has been on the record pushing something like Christian nationalism for America? Where does that end up?
Yeah, I understand. I see your point, and that's definitely a red flag. Hello, it's me. Quick break. Just to tell you that if you like what you've seen so far, amazing. We want to do more of it. We need your help. Take a moment just to hit subscribe, share it with one mate. That's all we ask for. All right, back to the show. But at least her and Tucker Carlson are consistent in that they are America first, very nationalist, protectionist. Their actions and their rhetoric is consistent with the so-called MAGA values. It just seems that so much of other Republicans have abandoned that. And so I think that's where they get a little bit more interesting. And you go, maybe there is a bit more, maybe they have conviction. They've at least they're consistent. I don't know. But also,
yeah, I guess you can say that.
But
one thing that's important though, before we move on, is that it's important not to overstate the influence. We've only talked really about two people. Like there's a whole host of, MAGA podcasters that don't necessarily toe this line. There are others that do. But like in terms of how much influence they have on decision making in the United States, like I talked about that bill that Marjorie Taylor Greene put forward, right? It was voted down, unsurprisingly. But do you want to know how much it was voted down by?
I'm guessing a lot.
422 to 6.
Oh my God.
Votes down. You see what I'm saying? So you still have a an upper and lower house of US Congress that is very much in support of Israel. And I guess the question is, how much impact does this rift within MAGA actually have on the Republican Party?
Sure. I mean, that's if you look at it politically, and it seems very, very little. But if we're to take it back to the media and who to trust and what audiences who are a bit perplexed should do. I mean, I think what people like Piers Morgan, who seemed to have a moral epiphany about, 8 to 10 months ago, and started to shift in his thinking and his language on Gaza.
I'm not so sure about that, but okay.
Something shifted. Whether you trust
something.
Candace Owens has been more sort of resolute and direct since leaving her past job. Tucker Carlson, he's been pretty overt. Is that they are filling a void. And you said before, there are people on the left saying this, and I'd argue maybe the usual suspects on the left are, but the so-called independent or the so-called centrists or the public broadcasters aren't doing the job that they should be doing. And my fear is that it's going to get more people like those in our DMs, like my sister, like other people who are going, well,
I just don't trust the mainstream media.
What the Guardian's serving me up is bullshit. What I'm reading here doesn't feel right. Why is Candace Owens making a lot of sense? And so the danger there is that usual, kind of centrist people, centrist or left, are potentially veering right. And then when Candace Owens, in that same kind of charismatic clarity with that cadence, says things like, and it doesn't make sense to kill babies, and in the same breath says, and they're all perverts, and where have they put the bodies, and men are going to act like women and wear dresses. You just be like, oh damn, I'd worried about that influence. And that seeping through.
Right.
And so, I mean, the responsibility really is for the rest of the media to do its job, so that people don't have to go out and seek Candace Owens or be like me, really confused about who Tucker Carlson is and if he's being held hostage.
And what do you think? Do you think they will do a better job on Palestine, on Gaza, on Israel, on the impacts of Israel on US politics or whatever respective country you're in? No.
Okay, well then, I mean,
no.
What do we then advise for people who and there are so many over the past couple of months who've emailed and say, what do you think about this? And how come this is making sense?
I think we just look, the thing that's been the most helpful for me is just to be clear about the context of the people that they're following and the people that they're putting a lot of credence in, right? They have long tail careers. They have a long record. They didn't just pop out of nowhere. So I think, examine that and just take everything with a pinch of salt, understand the position that they're coming from. It might not be the same as yours. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing that they've arrived at this conclusion. It just means that they've come from a completely different perspective. So I guess allocate your trust rations accordingly.
And it's
okay.
Is
that helpful?
I think so. I think it's okay to agree on someone about something and still be a little bit critical or suspicious of the why. It could be that they really do disagree on this, but with Candace Owens, who has horrible and offensive views on Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, and has said and done so many things that many in the African American community have said is incredibly harmful to their community. And go, but she's making sense about not using starvation as a weapon of war.
I mean, I know I feel like I say this on every podcast, but just listen to Palestinians. Just listen to Palestinians first. If you're having qualms about who to listen to and who to believe and who to trust, just start there. Start there. And believe me, there is a network of podcasters, independent media outlets, journalists, substackers, you name it, that is growing and that is more and more interconnected by the day. So you really just need to land on one of them and they will sort of show you towards the rest. I would say explore that corner of the internet.
Sure, if it's pertaining only to Israel and Gaza. But now, because people listening to Tucker and to Candace and Piers Morgan about Charlie Kirk or about Trump or about China.
Yeah, great. Now we think Brigitte Macron is a man.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, to be.
So
I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to.
You were listening to too much Candace.
I have. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Yeah.
There you go.
Look,
I hope that was helpful.
It is. I mean, I go back to, maybe I keep, we always arrive at the same point. Your point is centralist to Palestinians. My point is, where are our motherfucking colleagues? Do your job properly. The rest of our industry, do your job. Otherwise, I have to listen to Tucker Carlson, and that's really unfair.
Oh my God. Next episode of the podcast, I get red pilled. Oh, Jesus Christ.